Hello, future millionaires and billionaires. This is Carmel speaking, and we're here to continue on our conversation about the millionaire next door. And I'm still continuing the chapter of Frugal, Frugal, Frugal. Well, I just finished reading the chapter, and can I say that it was so amazing? I learned a lot. So the first thing that really stuck out to me is just taxes. You know, taxes is the ugly word, probably the ugliest word in the English dictionary that we all tend to hate. But I've always considered them to be sort of like a necessary evil. Considering that we're in America, we benefit from so many services, public education, health care for lower income families, just so many services, even our military, and just protecting us on a day-to-day basis and protecting us from foreign threats, even home threats. You know, natural disasters, FEMA kicks in, etc. The list goes on and on and on. So I always knew that we benefit from taxes. And so I just looked at it as a necessary evil. And because I looked at it as a necessary evil, whenever I got paid, I just always ignored what it is that I actually was making and just paid attention to my net pay, what I was actually taking home. And so I could never tell you, even till like literally right now, I could not tell you literally what I make bi-weekly. What I make bi-weekly, but I can definitely tell you what my net pay is bi-weekly, what I take home. And so the problem that this chapter exposed is that in the end, by our taxes, the way America works when it comes to taxes, the average person, so in essence, the poor and the middle class, we're paying by far so much more in taxes than the wealthy are. And for me, then that strikes a chord because it's really unfair. And so I've always heard about it being unfair, taxes being unfair, taxes being unfair, and I always understood then that in the end, the biggest way, or I always believed that the biggest way government will finally make things fair is by taxing the rich. But now I'm starting to see a different perspective. If I really want to become wealthy, then I have to realize that tax is truly a big enemy. So I just, because of the way that the chapter explained the dangers of taxes, they say before our biggest expense in our household literally is taxes. So it's not my mortgage, it's not my car notes, it's not my student loans, it's taxes. And so when they put it like that, then I'm seeing that there's a huge problem here. Because though I benefit from the services of government, is it to the point that, almost, half of my income should go to taxes? I just did the math. And what I saw is that 29% of my income goes to taxes each and every year. So that's 29 cents out of every dollar that I make goes to taxes. I did not know it was that bad. And so now what eventually happens is that if I truly expect to be rich, and this is the secret that the wealthy has already been implementing for Lord knows how long in this country, I have to minimize my tax burden. That is a necessity. It's something that I need for my financial security and for my family's financial future. I need to find out that, once again, like I spoke about in my last post, that I need to be the biggest benefactor of every penny that I'm making. Not government, not anybody else. It needs to be me. If I'm the one who's working the hardest, then I need to be the biggest benefactor of every penny that I make. Now, the biggest problem that I also have is that in the end, because we do recognize, going back to the argument, especially Democrats love to make this argument, and I understand, I totally understand this argument. I am a Democrat, believe it or not. But that really doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican, whatever. I can see both sides of both issues. But I truly understand why we need the taxes. But I also understand, too, that in the end, if some people have personal goals of becoming wealthy, these taxes are really an impediment to their goals. So they have to understand that if they want to go ahead and find so many of these legal ways to not pay their fair share of taxes, then people should also understand that they should not line up for services, that the tax dollars provide. So the next time a natural disaster comes, then because of the fact that you did not put in your fair share of taxes, then do not line up from FEMA to go ahead and get, the government to subsidize, fixing up your property. Use the money in the savings that you got, to fix up your own house, fix up your own property. Next time, God forbid, you get into a health crisis, do not go come in the government for them to go foot the bill or to subsidize your health insurance. You need to go ahead and foot that bill, pay that bill to get it done. So it's a catch-22. Where do I feel? How do I honestly feel about this? I think I'm actually really ready to move on to the other side. I think I'd rather go ahead and find ways to minimize my tax bill. I need to make that a necessity and get to the point that where I'm making so far exceeds what it is that that if any in the event that some sort of need were to happen to me or my family, that now I've got enough money and so that, or wealth, that, I can easily take care of that situation. Therefore, I don't need to rely on that. And so that's going to have to be a choice and a consequence that I'm going to have to accept. So that's just my only problem, like with the recession that we had. You have all of these corporations that barely pay anything in taxes. GE one year paid nothing in taxes. And so they're walking around being the top income earners and producers, wealth generators, and yet they're paying nothing in taxes. And then you turn around when we had the recession, you have all of these car companies lining up, all of these big banks lining up, turning around and getting these government bailouts. That is a form of welfare. That is a form of what, that is a benefit of what our tax dollars do. So you cannot not pay into a system and then you expect to go ahead and benefit from it later on when a disaster strikes. That is my only complaint. So with that in mind, people have to realize that yes, taxes are a problem. In essence, if you really want to build wealth, what this book has really opened my eyes to is that I have to make minimizing my tax burden a priority. I have to make that a priority if I ever expect to accumulate wealth. If in the end that 29% of every penny that I make is going to, not 29%, I said 29%, wrong, 35%. 35% of every penny that I'm every dollar that I make is going to the government before it even sees my hands. That is a huge problem. You know what I can do with a 35% raise? So I definitely need to make sure that I am minimizing my wealth. And how does the author suggest, or Millionaire Next Door suggest that we minimize our tax wealth? In the end, most of the taxes is coming from earned income, or what the book calls consistently realized income. This is simply money that you get from your job. So if I'm working if I'm working at a job, a 9-to-5 job, whether I'm making, $15,000 a year, whether I'm making $80,000 a year, whether I'm making $200,000 a year, or even if I'm making $1 million a year. The point is, if I'm going to a 9-to-5, I'm going to this job, and I'm depending on the paycheck, then in the end, the government is taking out their percentage based on what I make, per year. They're taking out their share of taxes, and it's high first. And then whatever left over is what I have left to spend. And for too long, I've been comfortable with just saying, okay, forget that. I can't cry over spilled milk. Let me just focus on what I'm making. But then the reality is, if I don't have to pay it, and there's legal ways that I don't have to pay it, then why should I be paying it? Because they're taking out so much that's in keeping me from a position of ever really being able to build wealth and being financially free. So that's my problem. So in the end, I have to, first of all, reduce my reliance on earned income. I don't care how much you're making. You cannot depend as your primary source of income should not be coming from a 9-to-5 job. First of all, you have to understand that whenever you're working for somebody else, no matter how much you're making, no matter how good the salary is, in the end, they're only giving you a fraction of the of your wealth, of their wealth. And so in essence, you may be worth to a company millions of dollars, but you're only receiving $100,000 for that. So you made them all of this money, and you're only receiving a small portion of the value that you're bringing them. Why can't you be bringing that to yourself? Then too, when you turn around and get that small fraction of what you've earned, then Uncle Sam comes with his hand out and say, "Give me my money." They're asking for your money. Ridiculous. And so with that in mind, you have to tell them no. You have to find a way as to how to keep the money in your pocket. You need to make sure that earned income or that realized income is not the majority of your wealth. So then the question becomes, where else then will the money come from? So in the book, it stresses the importance then of having unrealized gains and capital appreciation. And why? Because both of these things are sources in which the government taxes less or not tax at all. So what do we mean by an unrealized gain? For example, that's like stock. If you buy stock at $30 a share, and then it appreciates to $60 a share, that's $30 of that you basically got from that stock. And so now your net worth has went up by $30 a share. And of course, the more shares you have, the more money you have. The more money you have, the more wealthy you are. And in the end, the government is not going to tax that because it's unrealized. You have not cashed in on that money yet. All right. So it's so that's one. Now, two, you're saying, well, what good is the money then if you're not cashing it in? Let's just say now you're ready to go ahead and cash it in. Then what eventually happens is, because government wants to encourage businesses, businesses run everything truthfully in this country. So they want to encourage businesses. When you're a stockholder, you're basically a part owner of the business, and they're using that money. These businesses, corporations, are using that money to fund the needs of their businesses, to keep their corporation going and growing, to make more money. And so in the end, what the government does is give us tax benefits or breaks called capital gains. We don't have to pay. What am I trying to say? They give us tax benefits on lending our money to these corporations. And so what happens is that there's capital gains taxes that you pay on the appreciation of your stocks. Now, if you keep your money in for at least a year, then what happens is government taxes you at a significantly lower rate than if you had pulled your money out before a year, and that's a significantly lower rate than what you're paying on your earned income. So what does that mean then? If you could find ways to take the money that you make and then put it towards stocks, or put it towards stocks, any dollar that you have, not even just money that you make, because once again we want to reduce our earned income capacity. Any dollar that you have, period, and you find ways to grow that money, so it's money that you didn't even have to work for, it just grew off of money that you already had, then in the end, government of course is going to come with their hands out, but in the end, because of that, now you've got a loophole to say, nope, I'm going to pay less than what I would if I were working 9 to 5. So here you have a situation where the average person, when they see that they need money, they're turning around and deciding, I'm going to work another job, I'm going to go back to school, take out massive student loans, pay back massive student loans with interest, and do all of this just to make more money or earn more money, just a fraction of what I'm really worth. Whereas you can go ahead and put your money that you've already made, put it into something that's appreciating. You earn money that you didn't have to work for, and then now you're turning around and paying less than what you would pay on money that you have to work harder for. So you see, you're paying less for easier money, So that makes sense. Reduce the tax burden. Another one, capital appreciation. You buy a house for $100,000. Years later down the line, the house appreciates to $150,000, $200,000, whatever dollars. In the end, whatever it goes to is you. So in the end, we get a lot of savings when it comes to the sale of our home. We don't have to pay taxes, or if it's an investment property, you don't have to pay as much taxes when it comes to these things. And so with that in mind, that's a whole lot of savings that I have, with no taxes if it's my home that I'm living in, And when I sell that property, that's money I don't have to pay taxes on. This is free money. And once again, this is less than what I'm paying for working. I'm working hard and I have to pay all this money on it. So find ways to dump your money into these things. Then there's other programs that a lot of people don't know of, like you got your IRAs and your Roth IRAs, etc. So IRAs, you basically avoid. You can reduce the amount of taxes that your tax bracket by putting more money into that now. And so if you put enough money into there, you could possibly reduce your tax bracket. Therefore, you're paying Uncle Sam a little bit less than what you normally would be making by being in a higher tax bracket. That's one way, but just understand that later on, Uncle Sam is going to come back for his money. All right? So which is something to keep in mind. So maybe you can find other ways to divert later on down the line. I'm no tax expert. Don't claim to be one. I'm just saying rich people, the millionaires and the billionaires, they figure that stuff out. And if we want to be truly financially free and we want to become the next millionaires and billionaires, we too got to figure that stuff out. All right? So that's what I'm saying. And then second thing with the Roth IRA, that's a beauty right there. You once again, with the assumption we already paid our taxes, you take your money, you put your money into that, as much of it as possible, which by law is $5,500 a year. And then in the end, you go ahead and you invest that money any which way that you like. You turn around, any penny that you make from that is yours. It's tax free. And so with that in mind, that right there is a beauty as well. That's free money. The point is, find ways to eliminate the tax burden. I was very blown away with this chapter because it made me see things in a different light. It made me not be complacent with, okay, just accepting that we have to pay taxes, but understanding really why it's an impediment to my wealth. If I'm paying them more than, if that's literally the biggest, my biggest bill in my household, and it's something that's not even serving me, then I have a problem with that. And so by understanding that and making it my business to eliminate that taxes and finding more ways to more smartly use the money that I have to grow for me. I needed to grow. That's another big thing, investing. People have to invest. You cannot expect to be wealthy based on saving alone, people. I cannot stress that enough. The bank does not pay you enough to go ahead and just save. There's something called the Rule of 72. I don't know if everybody knows it, but they should be teaching this in schools. The Rule of 72 basically says you take whatever interest that you expect to make from any sort of investment per year, you divide it by 72. When you do that, that number that comes out will basically tells you how much time it will take for your money to double. All right. So anyway, if let's say I'm making 1% interest or in a bank, right? Then in essence, I take 1%, 72 divided by 1%. What does that mean? It's going to take 72 years for my money to double. In the end, nobody got that kind of time from adulthood until then waiting for some money to double, which means there's no way I'm going to become wealthy in my lifetime off of that money. Okay, so now let's say if I'm doing stocks and or mutual funds, let's say mutual funds, and I'm making 8% returns from that, then if I divide that into 72, that means it's going to take me 9 years to double my money in a mutual fund. And of course, the number goes up and up and up depending on the investments I have, stocks, real estate, etc. So the bottom line is find smarter ways to go ahead and have your money work for you, because the more it works, the more you take, even whatever job I have, no matter if I'm making $20,000 a year, $50,000 a year, $80,000 a year, $150,000, $200,000, $1 million a year, I have to find some way to save a little something and invest a little something. If I invest it, then what I'm doing is expecting that money to grow for me. So this is money I don't have to get out and work at a 9 to 5 for, and I'm having it work for me, making more money for me. And so I effectively break out of this rat race. Robert Kiyosaki talks about that all the time in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, how the poor and the middle class, we get up, we work hard at these 9 to 5s just so we can go ahead and buy a whole bunch of stuff, in his terms called liabilities. It's nothing that makes us any money. And then when we spend everything we have, then we have to get back out and work again. And so we're on this never-ending cycle of working just to buy, just to work again, just to buy more, just to work again, just to buy more. That's the rat race. And in the book, in essence, that's what they talked about too, that we're on this cycle of just working just to spend. You know, we're working to spend, we're working to spend, we're working to spend. That's ridiculous. I need to find a way to go ahead and have my money working for me so that I'm working and I'm investing into assets, which is making more money for me. So now I've got more than one source of income. Hear me clearly, people. Not 2 jobs. I have 2 sources of income. I've got my earned income, or realized income as the book calls it, and I've got my passive income, something coming in from the stocks, something coming in from real estate, or whatever else I can think of. So the bottom line is, this is what we need to be doing. And I need to make sure that in the end, when the author talks about playing defense with our money, I totally get it. I've never been a sports person, but the way it now comes up, I remember the games, Love and Basketball, for example, saying offense sells tickets, defense wins games. So in the end, they're talking about, in the end, the best way to win a game is by defending your territory. You got to make sure that the opponent does not score in your own territory. And so it's the same thing that the authors are really stressing in this book, that we have to play defense with our money. So in the end, it's really that serious, that we're making this money every year, earned income, but yet we are just not really caring about just how it goes. So we just let it go every which way. Whoever comes with their hand out, we're just giving it and forking it and forking it and forking it over. Corporations want it, we give it to them in the form of all the crap that we buy every year that's unnecessary. Uncle Sam wants to know, we just give it over. Our children want it, we just give it over. Charities, everybody come with their hands out and we just give it over. We are, when they say that humankind is not too generous, we are the most generous. Americans are the most generous people, because we always just giving everything to our hard-earned money to everyone who comes with their hands open for it. And so in the end, we have to start playing defense with our money. We have to start making sure that we are not just bragging and boasting about how much we make, but instead we need to brag and boast about how much we're actually keeping. What is it that we actually have left over by the end of the day? What do our bank accounts look at? And like I'm saying, I can care less about the bank accounts other than emergency savings. I'm really caring more about that investment account, because, and here's the reason why I say that, because the way imagine somebody's good at saving, and they turned around and saved like $60,000, $100,000, and we turned around and said, ooh, $60,000, $100,000, they got that much money in the bank? Here's the problem I have with that. Let's say they lose their job. How quickly will it take them to go through or burn through $60,000, $100,000? I spend in cash, for example, $59,000. That's how much I take home. I spend $59,000 a year. So if I imagine I worked hard and I saved, over the years, let's say 20 years, I managed to save $60,000, right? And then I turn around and go through a hard time in year 21. How quickly will it take me to save that 20 years worth of savings? In a year, 2 years tops, that money will be gone. And that's the problem. Whereas if I had invested that money, that $60,000, right now, at the end of 20 years, that money could have been worth maybe $800,000, maybe $1 million. Of course, there's investment calculators, but the point is it will be worth significantly more. Now, let's say at year 21, I go through a hard time. I'm laid off from a job. I get sick or ill. I can't work. Now, I've got, $800,000, $1 million. How much longer will it take me to burn through that cash? That could potentially last me, today and age, probably not the rest of my life, but darn near close to it. It could get me through a good 10 years, definitely. So with this in mind, this is why we have to look into the mindset of growing our money. Savings cannot do that. Simple math. The compounding effect, of investing the money, and the interest rates, the higher interest rates that you get, the rate of returns that you get on your money from stocks and investing in real estate and other investments, it simply way outpaces just saving it. And so people have to go ahead and invest their money. They have to find other ways to passively build their money. Do something that, one time you put your effort into it one time, not having to go work for it over and over and over again. Put your effort into it one time, and then before you know it, that money, is still making money for you years and years and years and years, decades to come. Example, somebody talked about, for example, writing a book. Jeremy from the YouTube channel. I like him. So he talks about writing a book. You turn around, you sell that book, then what eventually happens, 10 years from now, you just have to write that book once, but 10 years from now, you're still getting paychecks, royalty checks from that income, not from that income, from that book that you wrote. So this is what we're talking about, passive income, okay? It's money that you don't have to go out and work for. You initially invest in it, and that money keeps growing for you. So we need to be smarter in that way. Play defense. We need to keep our money, and we need to keep our money out of Uncle Sam's hand. Just understand that if you keep your money out of Uncle Sam's hand, to be fair, don't come begging and crying when you going through a hard time and you expect Uncle Sam to go ahead and bail you out. No. You better go ahead and make sure that you are making the wisest decisions with that money, learning as much as possible with your money so that you can go ahead and be in a position to take care of you when you need it. So that's my only hang up. Also, what the book talks about is the importance of who you marry. That in the end, who you marry really will determine how wealthy you're going to be. That a couple has to be financially on the same page. For anybody who's spiritual, biblical, etc., you want to make sure that the Bible, for example, says that you have to be equally yoked. You can't expect to have one person who's into saving and investing and building wealth, meanwhile you got another one who's it's all about consumption. They're just spending, and it doesn't matter on what. They just keep spending. In the end, if you have those two people, they are not equally yoked. And what's going to happen is that person is going to negatively drag down the wealth building abilities of the household because they can never get their spending under control. So people have to understand that you have to be very selective of who it is you decide to marry. You have to make sure that you're on the same page, and really that should not be a surprise to us because up until recently, they say wealth has been the number one reason why Americans have been divorcing. Not wealth, but money. That the fights that come off of money, the differences about money, have been too big, and has caused many couples to split because of that. Their differences. So this is something you really have to talk with your partner about before you decide to tie the knot, and make sure that you guys are on the same page. Because in the end, if you are on the same page, you could really make a lot of magic happen. And so that's definitely something that people should keep in mind. You have to be equally yoked. Which kind of makes me think about like the celebrities, how they get married and then they turn around, they get divorced, and they turn around and get married again. That's very careless because in the end, you the alimony payments, you're splitting half of your wealth with someone else because of the decisions of not taking that seriously. And then you've got these other couples who get married, and you can look at them and see, obviously it wasn't because of love, obviously. And so they didn't take into consideration about being equally yoked. They took into consideration about other things, but they don't understand the real financial implications that can have on their lives and their future, because when something happens to them, be the first person to clean them out financially. And unfortunately, that's nothing left of their legacy, nothing to pass on to their children, nothing great to say, except they got to enjoy their wives for the short time who wasn't really interested in them and calling it a day. So that's something else that I wanted to bring in mind. Let me just quickly look at what else I think. One last thing I found most debatable is that the idea that in the end that we have to be so frugal with our money. Let me go ahead and find it exactly. That we have to be so frugal with our money when it comes to investing. My problem that I have is that the authors, they say that, and let me just go ahead and quote it. They said, if all wealth is, hold on. It says to build wealth, minimize your earned / realized, which is your taxable income, and maximize your unrealized income and non-taxable and undertaxable income. Well, I added in the undertaxable income. So they said wealth capital appreciation without a cash flow. This is my biggest problem. And now I understand why they keep stressing that millionaires like to be frugal, 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 frugal. In the end, they said without a cash flow. In the end, I think it is important to have a cash flow. What do I mean by that? I mean that in the end, we can't be so confused, consumed with building wealth that we think that the only purpose is to make sure that we get our numbers up and our portfolios up. That to the point that government can't even touch the money that we have sitting in some sort of accounts. I'm not talking about bank accounts, but accounts that our numbers are going up and that we're worth $5 million, $10 million, $2.5 billion, $10 billion, $100 billion. We can't be so as concerned with or only concerned about being worth these numbers if in the end that still means at the bottom line that I can't touch any of that money. I find that to be a big problem. And why? Because the book alludes to that in the end, with the examples that they use with the tax man, they say that in the end that these millionaires or these average millionaires are live these very frugal lives, cheap cars or inexpensive cars, etc. I understand that. I understand about keeping expenses low and not wasting your money, etc. But what I also understand too is that truthfully, philosophy now, life is supposed to be a gift. And we work hard. And so what I find to also be the extreme too, which is what this book also seems to be doing, the extreme, the opposite end of this constant spending is this whole wealth building philosophy that in the end you're saying, okay, I'm not going to go ahead and worry about the here and now. How can I go ahead and worry about building wealth so that, let's say I start by the time I'm 18 years old. I'm on this kick for building wealth. And I sock away all of this money. I invest all of this money. I don't want to have any cash reserves. I want to minimize my earned / realized income to the point that it's practically nothing. And most of my wealth is coming from investments, etc., etc. Then in the end, I'm sacrificing so much that I'm not living in a nice house or the greatest house or my desired house or whatever else. Going to my desired schools or send my children to desired schools, driving my desired cars or taking my desired vacations or whatever else. I'm just sacrificing, etc. I understand the whole purpose of sacrificing short-term for long-term gains. What I do not understand is sacrificing a lifetime. So from the time I'm 18 to the time I'm 65, my only goal is about accumulating wealth. And then I turn around because now it's time for me to retire, and then soon it'll be time for me to die. And then now I want to be concerned about keeping the money so much out of the taxman's hands that now I'm giving my children small portions so that they're not getting taxed, and then I'm turning around and passing it on to charities. Now, this is where I have a problem. And this is what I see a lot of people do, because I remember hearing about Bill Gates, how he was only going to leave his kids. This was many years ago. I don't know if he changed it now. I'll look into that. But I remember how he was going to leave his kids just $1 million each as the wealthiest man in the world. And he was going to turn around and give his money to charities. To me, I find that equally as offensive. Because in the end, why would you work so hard and do what you do your whole lifetime to become that wealthy? You had to give up a lot of sacrifices. You gave up a lot. You sacrificed a lot, and so you gave up a lot. You put your work and your business a lot of times before your family. You had to. All right. You definitely had to minimize spending so much to the point that you can constantly grow and grow and grow that worth. You sacrificed a lot, and so you mean to tell me now that you never really get to enjoy that money, all in the names of really just keeping the tax man out of the money too? I understand that you built the wealth, but what does the wealth mean then if it's not meant to enjoy? It's the same thing like these credit scores. People getting so bent out of shape for credit scores. Yes, it's important. It's a tool. Yes, but in the end, you are not just your credit score. That credit score is supposed to be used to allow you to do other things. Same way, the money is not just there just to be the money. The money is not the be all end all. The money is a tool. In the end, it's a concept invented by man. So we have dominion over that money, not the other way around. And so the money is a tool. And what is that ultimate goal? It's financial freedom. It's be able to live life completely on your terms, not to just have this fat behind bank account that literally, is better than almost all of these Americans. And what does it really mean? Nothing, because at the end of the day, you're not passing on as much as possible to the kids, to your kids or your grandkids, your future generations. And worse, you giving it off to charities. I am for giving to charities, definitely giving for causes and whatever. But you're not going to tell me. I'm sorry. If anybody lie and tell me, I'm going to tell you to your face that's a lie from the deepest pit of hell. All right? You're not going to tell me that you worked hard all your life just to give the money to the charities. So there's a problem here. That means then people need to be enjoying their wealth as well. So we need to find ways to also reduce the tax burden. It may not always be as simple as just keeping it away from Uncle Sam immediately, but you need to find ways to reduce it. And how can you do that? Business ownership. Businesses pay far less taxes than regular individuals. Dividend income. If you pay yourself as a shareholder rather than a business owner, you pay less in taxes. Once again, the capital gains. There's so many ways out there. I don't know all of them. I'm no tax expert, but I'm damn sure committed to find it out because I'm damn sure committed to becoming wealthy. And why not? Not just to have money, but to become financially free, to have choices, to make sure that I can live life on my terms and nobody else have that power to force me to live life the way that they want me to live so they can get rich off of me. So this is why I'm doing this. And so bottom line is we need to make sure that we're also living life. I cannot expect to go ahead and work hard from the time I'm 18 to the time I'm 65 or 68 now, whatever, so I can retire. And then what happens if I don't live to 50 to 65? What happens if I die at 69 or 70? So I never really got to enjoy the benefits of my labor. And once again, I believe, like I say it with me now, who should be the biggest benefactor of my hard-earned money, of everything, of every decision that I've made, every sacrifice that I made in terms of accumulating more wealth? It should always be me. And so with that in mind, I need to make sure that I'm finding ways that I can also enjoy and live life, not overconsume, okay? But still enjoy and live life, which is why I believe, part of the reason why I believe that we were blessed on life, we were, given this taste of life to enjoy one another, to come to love and know one another, to rely on one another, to grow ourselves to our highest possible abilities, to enjoy all of the blessings that life has to offer us. And so, yes, to enjoy. Nothing wrong with that. People don't make it feel like the 1400s when the Catholic Church was in charge. No offense to Catholics, I'm a Catholic too. All right, when the church was in charge and saying, hey, you should feel guilty for enjoying. We should enjoy life. We work darn hard for it. We should enjoy life, but understand we should not go overboard. That we should make wealth building our priority, not just to accumulate wealth, but to achieve financial independence. This is the bottom line. And so, with this in mind, my biggest takeaways from this chapter is I need to find definitely ways to minimize my tax burden. This is really igniting the reasons why I need to really push forward with my businesses. Push forward with my passive income streams, really move forward towards all of the other things that I'm doing, continuing with my investments. I am actively investing, especially in stocks right now, etc. I need to just find other ways to find to play defense with my money, to keep my money, more of my hard-earned money, and find more ways to grow my money, find more ways to passively make more money. And the more that I do that, the more wealth I will accumulate, and the more wealth I will accumulate, the better off me and my family will be, and so will mankind, because I know I'm a loving person and will find ways to get back. So with this in mind, I'd just like to say this chapter was awesome. I loved a lot of what it has to say. I know I didn't even touch on a lot of what it has to say, but these were the biggest points that stuck out to me that I wanted to touch on. And I hope that you enjoyed it and learned a lot from it as much as I did. Let's find ways to grow our income and keep taxman out of our bank accounts, okay? With that in mind, if you really like this video, please subscribe. Please like the video. Please feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns, or even debates. Like I said, I love to debate. Please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. All right? Thank you for watching this long behind video. Bye-bye.